Happy New Year! 2024. I can't believe it. I'm beginning my 18th year full-time at WFAN.
What?
Yeah, 18. Happy anniversary to Boomer and Gio. They're beginning, I think it's their 7th year doing mornings. And didn't you start on January 2nd as well, Tiki? At least at the Fan.
I did.
Year 5?
Actually, didn't we start in the middle of the year?
Year 4?
It's his third year.
Third year.
Which tells you he doesn't plan on being here another 15 based on that reaction.
I actually don't remember. I know I started at CBS Network. That was 13 years ago.
Ah.
But I don't remember when I started on the Fan.
All right. Well, January 2nd. It's my sister's birthday. It's Boomer and Gio's anniversary, and I'm beginning my 18th year full-time at WFAN. But Happy New Year to everybody. I do have an issue that hopefully you can talk me off the ledge of, because this annoyed me. And I think it should annoy every single Giant fan out there. And we'll get to the Jets later, the Knicks trade, the lesson of Steve Cohen during this offseason. But Brian Daboll, who's a hell of a head coach, has screwed Tommy DeVito.
What are you talking
And that
about?
means he screwed all of you, because Tommy DeVito made 6 starts as quarterback of the New York Giants. He was 3-3. He threw 8 touchdown passes, 3 interceptions, completed about 64% of his passes. And yeah, against the Eagles on Christmas, he deserved to be benched. No issue from me. But he also deserved to get his chance again to at least prove what he is, whether he's just a backup, whether he can still be that future starter of this team, or he should be out of the league. We needed to get the answer. And I think what disappointed me about what Brian Daboll pulled was benching him to win a game against the Eagles was fine, but not going back to him to just finish the story. Like, we didn't finish it, because I could sit here today and tell you, Tiki, I don't know what he is because he wasn't given a fair shake.
And that's football. That is the meritocracy of the game.
Is it?
It is. You have to earn it.
Not if you're a first-round pick, Teak.
Well, he's not a first-round pick. And so for Tommy DeVito, it really came down to, are you going to continue to be the spark that you were when you won 3 games in a row? And for 3 games, he absolutely was. Really, for 5 games, he absolutely was that guy. Even in the Dallas game where he was beat up a little bit, and you saw it at the end. We talked about it briefly.
Yeah.
You know, how should he have kept playing? Yeah, of course not. Why not? How many real live opportunities you get? So for 5 games, Tommy DeVito felt like he was that spark, but then he wasn't. It was like the light went out.
I understand.
And I'm not saying this is a knock to Tommy DeVito. It's just a reality of the game. Sometimes they start to figure you out. And in that case, Brian Daboll had to do what Brian Daboll has to do to try to win a football game.
I have no issue with that. Like, literally, going to Tyrod Taylor in Philadelphia, I was good with, because I'm with you. You're trying to win a football game. But when that game is over, and now you take a seat down, and you watch the tape, and you get ready for your next game against the Los Angeles Rams, you have to make a decision not just on trying to win a game, but also, hey, what's my future with this guy? And quite frankly, I'm sitting here today on January 2nd, and I don't think we have the answer.
No, you don't.
And that's a problem.
Well, is it? Is it a problem?
Yes.
Why? So the only reason it's a problem is because it feels like the Giants' quarterback situation is up in the air completely. We don't know if Daniel Jones is going to be healthy. We don't know if Joe Shane is going to draft a quarterback. I don't think those guys are going to be around, because there's so many teams, as we're looking at it now, as the season winds down, that are going to go get quarterbacks at the top of the draft. So maybe the Giants get one in the 2nd round. But if Tommy DeVito, who will be in camp next year, goes into camp and performs at a ridiculously high level, plays well when he gets the opportunity in the preseason, there's a chance that it gets reignited.
No, it's not.
I'm just telling you.
You're starting a guy who's a free agent at the end of the season, and I like Tyrod Taylor, though he makes some insane mistakes, by the way. As good as he is at times, Tyrod Taylor does things on a football field that make you say, what the hell is going on? But the idea that this could be reignited in August, it's crazy. It's dead now. And it's dead now because the Giants decided after a mere 6 games, we already know the deal with this guy. And I'm going to give up a specific name that I've always thought about in this context that was not given the full opportunity despite, I thought, playing well a few years ago. And now he's the starting quarterback for a team that may go to the playoffs. And the comparison I'm going to bring up is Gardner Minshew. Gardner Minshew was a 6th-round pick and got no respect. In 2019, he put up big numbers. In 2020, he was playing reasonably well, and that was it. And then he became a backup quarterback around the league, whether it was Philadelphia or it was to start this season in Indianapolis. And when luck fell his way, unfortunately because of an injury, Gardner Minshew stepped in. And he's won games, and he's played well, and his team has a chance to go to the playoffs. And that's an example of a guy getting disrespected because of where they were drafted or that they were never drafted. And what I'm afraid of is that 3 years from now, Tommy DeVito may get lucky enough to get an opportunity somewhere else because of injuries. And he's going to show you that maybe you should have given him a longer look than 6 freaking games.
Okay, so I want to back up like 3 weeks. No, how long? Because we were out for a week and a half. So I want to back up like almost a month. You remember when we were talking about Tommy DeVito and this love fest that was happening?
Yeah.
And I came in and I was the Debbie Downer. You remember that?
I do.
You remember that day?
I do remember.
Me being the Debbie Downer. You remember it, Sean?
Of course.
Loogie, we all remember this day. And I was saying, stop falling in love with the story, right? You got to fall in love with the player, the dude, the guy that goes out and does it. And if that is consistent, then all the other stuff will come. Look, I don't know that this was the case because I haven't talked to Dabes or anybody over at the Giants right now. But it felt like to a point where the story was bigger than the team. And if that should ever happen for a head coach and an organization, the team will always come first.
Well, hold on a second. He's being benched because his story was appealing?
No, he was benched because he was less than average. Now, he didn't do anything horrible in that game against the Philadelphia Eagles.
They also didn't let him do anything in that game.
And by the way, Tyrod Taylor didn't do much better. I think they threw the exact same amount of passes, and Tyrod Taylor completed one less. He just had the big bomb that made it interesting.
It was a fumble kick and an Adoree pick that really changed the game, not the quarterback change.
Absolutely right. So it wasn't that, but he wasn't the spark anymore. It felt like for 3 or 4 games, Tommy DeVito was this spark, and you didn't mind the story. But then all of a sudden, when he's average and there is no spark, but the story is still like enormous. And I'm not knocking the kid for doing Rayo's commercials and all this other stuff that he was doing, but it was like he was getting bigger than the team without earning being bigger than the team. Does that make sense? And so I'm not saying that this was the reason that they did this, but it felt prophetic to me to see it happen. Because the Giants aren't about the individual. They won't be.
But Tiki,
it's about the team. And Brian Daboll needed to win a game, and he felt like Tyrod Taylor gave him the better chance to do that. Because Tommy DeVito didn't have that spark anymore.
My argument with you has nothing to do with Tommy DeVito being from North Jersey or being Italian. I can promise you that. My argument is a guy who was undrafted, got thrown out after 6 quarters where there wasn't a spark.
Everybody.
No, not if you're picked in the first or second round. And this was my argument with you weeks ago before it happened. This was my argument with you about Mike White. This was my argument. This was my issue. This is why I was rooting for this kid.
You're saying,
because with 4 bad quarters or no spark quarters, you're so willing, you and this franchise, to say, see, not the guy, let's move on. And that's my issue. I promise you, him doing commercials or him being Italian or him being from Jersey, they're all nice extra stuff. That's not my motivation today, and it wasn't my motivation 2 weeks ago. My motivation was, hey, wow, maybe you found something in this undrafted kid. Maybe the performances are actually showing you he's got potential. And what the Giants decided to do was, because the spark kind of went away, which I don't disagree with, you decided enough's enough. Let's go watch a veteran backup who isn't going to be on the roster next year get the final 3 games.
But does he give you a better chance to win those games? That's the question.
Is that the ultimate question?
That's the ultimate question.
I disagree with you.
That
it shouldn't
be. Answer.
No, it shouldn't be, though. Because you're also trying to decide on next year, are you not?
I think you're still trying to win. And so, to me, and it's not about making the playoffs or anything like that. I mean, I'm not even talking about that. It's about culture and creating a winning week, right? What does a winning week look like? It starts on, Monday with the rehab stuff, and then Tuesday, your off day, don't go be an idiot. On Wednesday, get back into, the grind of it. And Thursday, maybe you have a speeded practice at this stage of the season. Friday, you tune it up. Saturday, you travel. And Sunday, you go perform, right? And who gave you the best chance to do that? Tyrod Taylor has a long history. It's not all starting history, but he's been around the game for a long time, and he knows how to handle this stuff. He's not distracted by anything. And I think Coach Dabes is in a very, he's in a unique and weird position. He was the coach of the year a year ago. They won 5 games this season.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, well, maybe 6, depending on what happens with the Eagles and who decides to play. But the Eagles need to win that game, despite them saying they might not play some players. But, coach of the year to a 5-win team out of 17 games, I mean, that's problematic. Right? It's a bad fall off. Now, there are tons of excuses, but we don't care about excuses. We care about production. And so at the end of the day, Coach Daboll has to find ways to win. And whatever the evaluation was, I don't think it had anything to do with the off-field stuff. I'm just saying that because that's what I felt I was getting bombarded with more than anything else was all of the off-field stuff. And I'm not knocking it because good. You'll make it while you can, dude. But
well, you are kind of knocking it because you're saying
ultimately-
it bothered you essentially.
Now, here's what happens. Evan. I know this because I did this, right? I was in media from my 3rd year until I retired 8 years later. If I'm balling, people love me on the media. If I'm playing like crap, they don't want to see me. It just is what it is.
I get that, but
that's just the reality.
Was
It's
that
nothing,
why
they're not related to one another.
Was he benched because of it?
No.
Then it doesn't matter.
No.
Then it doesn't matter.
But
It shouldn't matter.
it doesn't matter. But I think it ultimately comes down to who gave you the best chance to win a football game.
I am not.
And to me, that's Tyrod Taylor. Why? Because he's done it for a lot of years.
I am
and
not.
Tommy DeVito, as good and spark-filled as he was for a couple of weeks, he's only done it for a couple of weeks.
I am not a tankist the way some Giant fans and some Jet fans now are. More on that later. I am not. So we are not having a disagreement in which I'm saying, hey, I'd rather lose. I don't believe that. I haven't believed that. But what I am telling you is once the Giants are eliminated from the postseason, remember all those scenarios I gave you guys?
That was all you. Nobody else. We weren't even thinking about it. 23% if you have the 80% of something else happening.
Once you're at 0%, yes, you should try to win. I want to make peace with you about that. I'm not a tankist. But you also need to plan out for next year. Tyrod Taylor, and I like him, is not on this team next year.
They could re-sign him.
If you do, you already know what he is. Like, he's a backup quarterback who, by the way, I wouldn't mind on the Jets. Like, he's a fine backup quarterback, but you already know what he is. So you need to balance, yes, I'm trying to win, but I also need to figure the F out what I have. And I'm sorry. And you know a lot about football, and Brian Daboll knows a ton about football. I'm not telling you I know more than him or you, but here's what I'm telling you. I don't give a damn if you're the Albert Einstein of football or if you're Vince Lombardi. You don't know what Tommy DeVito is after 6 games. You don't. I'm sorry. You don't. Daboll doesn't. So I don't need to hear a lecture, not from you, but from him about how we already know. You don't know. And these final few games were a chance to find out. And when I say I want to finish his story, I don't mean Rayo's commercials. I don't mean appearances. I mean, can this kid play? Did you find something? Because I don't know if you know this, the Giants have to make a pretty big decision come late April. They have a draft pick. And last night, a lot of us schmucks were watching college football, maybe for the first time all season. And we became scouts watching Michael Penix Jr. and realizing, holy crap, that guy's had like 18 different torn ACLs. Like, they got to make a big decision. And when you make a big decision, like I do this in life, I want to have as much information as possible.
Okay.
You need more info on Tommy DeVito. I don't need more info on Tyrod Taylor. And that's why the decision to not start him against the Rams and the decision to not start him against Philadelphia on Sunday is a disservice to the team you are coaching, to the team you're rooting for. We needed to find out more. And for whatever reason, the book was slammed on him. You guys can't all be okay with that.
And not, I mean, I think you look at it as from, hey, could he become, and we played the Brock Purdy game, you talked about Minshew. Forget that for a second. Look around the league. We're at the threshold of hell, Helen, as far as backup quarterbacks being played.
True.
You need to develop backup quarterbacks. Just the reason Tyrod Taylor is, valuable. And if you have Tommy DeVito on the cheap, and I could get him for the next 2 games to learn from his lows the last 2 games, I would rather that. And this idea that Tyrod Taylor presents the Giants with so much of a better chance to win football games, that is where I push back and I say, no, sir. Because what I've seen this year, first of all, is a team that's won 5 games. You know who's won 3 of them? Tommy DeVito. And you know what I've seen Tyrod Taylor do? Yes, he could throw a frozen rope, a beautiful pass to Darius Slayton that makes our jaw drop and go, look at that deep ball that's been missing. but he can't hit Saquon Barkley 2 feet in front of him for a 2-point conversion. He can't figure out game and time situation at halftime of Buffalo where you're checking into a run with no timeouts left. I've seen Tyrod Taylor this year make losing football plays, just like we criticized Daniel Jones for. And Tommy DeVito, while he hasn't been necessarily great or lit the world on fire, he has made winning football plays like we saw versus Green Bay. He maybe holds onto the ball too long, but he doesn't turn it over either. I'm sorry. For all the tantalizing stuff Tyrod Taylor's done, he's lost some football games for this team, so I can't buy into this.
Did Tyrod Taylor lose the game against the Rams?
Yes.
He was a part of it.
Now hold on. The pushback, Tiki, the pushback could be maybe they're not as in the game with Tommy DeVito, which I will understand, and I could hear that argument. I don't know that because, again, I go back to the Packer game. I even thought he played well enough versus the Saints. But what I do know is, in the end, they didn't win that football game because Tyrod Taylor, despite the big throw to Slayton, missed Darren Waller wide open for what he could have walked in for a touchdown, threw behind Jalen Hyatt as he was running short of the sticks, and on a 2-point conversion touch pass, completely baffles the throw, and that's nothing new from Tyrod Taylor. In fact, it's the reason he is a backup quarterback.
We also have a guy who's wearing my number who can't make a kick.
Tiki, it looks like a guy who came out of the bar wearing your jersey to line up a kick.
We do have to address this because this has pissed off many a Giant fan, especially after he goes out and misses the game-winning kick while wearing your number. We'll get your calls coming up. Plus, more on Tiki's reaction to the fact that Mason Crosby walked into that Giant locker room and demanded Tiki's number the way he did. Toll-free numbers 877-337-6666. A lot to get to today. The New York Jets are a bunch of quitters. The New York Knicks made a trade that caused quite a debate amongst the Knicks fan on if it was a smart deal or a bad deal. And yes, Tiki will have to explain to all of us why the NFL isn't rigged. Because Saturday night felt like I was watching the WWE. And speaking of the WWE, where do you like to sit when you go out to dinner? Do you like to sit at a bar? Do you like to sit at a booth? Or Tiki, do you like to sit at the head of the table? Screw the national semifinal last night. The Rock laid the challenge to Roman Reigns. And I'm pumped up about it. I'm sorry I'm getting so emotional about it. That's my favorite part of 2024 so far.
Wow, if only that sport was real.
Wow.